Last week we completed Canto 4 of Book 1, The Secret Knowledge. You remember that Canto 4 begins with one line about King 𝑺𝒑𝒕𝒐. On page 46, the first line of the canto, The Secret Knowledge. Aurobindo tells us that as a result of the yoga that he's done up to now, the yoga of the soul's release, he's standing on a high point of development that's looking towards greater heights. When we climb in the mountains, we may see a peak and we climb up to it, but when we reach the top, we see that, oh, there are many more peaks. No? So it's like that. But then he didn't tell us anything more about King 𝑺𝒑𝒕𝒐. He shared with us the secret knowledge that 𝑺𝒑𝒑𝒕𝒐 has gained up to that point, on that height where he stood. So now we're going to go on from there, Canto 5, starting on page 74. So I'll read the first 50 lines, and then we'll go back and look at each sentence in detail. This knowledge, this secret knowledge that was shared with us in the previous canto, this knowledge first he had of time-born men. Of all human beings, King 𝑺𝒑𝒕𝒐 was the first to receive this secret knowledge. Admitted through a curtain of bright mind that hangs between our thoughts and absolute sight, he found the occult cave, the mystic door, near to the well of vision in the soul, and entered where the wings of glory brood, in the silent space where all is forever known. Indifferent to doubt and to belief, avid of the naked real's single shock, he shore the cord of mind that ties the earth heart, and cast away the yoke of matter's law. The body's rules bound not the spirit's powers. When life had stopped its beats, death broke not in. He dared to live when breath and thought were still. Thus could he step into that magic place which few can even glimpse with hurried glance, lifted for a moment from mind's labored works and the poverty of nature's earthly sight. All that the gods have learned is there self-known. There, in a hidden chamber, closed and mute, are kept the record graphs of the cosmic scribe, and there the tables of the sacred law. There is the book of being's index page. The text and glossary of the Vedic truth are there. The rhythms and meters of the stars, significant of the movements of our fate. The symbol powers of number and of form, and the secret code of the history of the world, and nature's correspondence with the soul are written in the mystic heart of life. In the glow of the Spirit's room of memories, he could recover the luminous marginal notes, dotting with light the crabbed, ambiguous scroll. Rescue the preamble and the saving clause of the dark agreement by which all is ruled that rises from material nature's sleep, to clothe the everlasting in new shapes. He could reread now and interpret new its strange symbol letters, scattered abstruse signs. Resolve its oracle and its paradox, its riddling phrases and its blindfold terms, the deep oxymoron of its truth's repliques, and recognize as a just necessity its hard conditions for the mighty work. Nature's impossible Herculean toil, only her warlock wisecraft could enforce. Its law of the opposition of the gods, its list of inseparable contraries. You will start, Suresh.
This knowledge first begat of time, born and completed through the curtain of dread night that hangs between our thought and absolute sight. He found the acute cave, the monastic road, near to the well of vision in the soul, and entered there the wings of glory grew, in the silent space where all is forever known.
Yes. So in this first line is quite significant. In a letter, Sri Aurobindo has said that this whole story of Savitri is supposed to have happened sometime right far, far back in the mists of time, near the beginnings of human history, when it was necessary, he says, to open the way, to hew the ways of immortality, open up the possibility of rising to higher states of consciousness. And here he's telling us that Savitri's father, King 𝐒𝐐𝒏𝒕𝒐, was the first human being, the first of time-born men, to have this knowledge which Sri Aurobindo has shared with us in the previous canto. So now he's telling us more about King 𝐒𝐴svapaṭi. He's been admitted, he's been allowed to enter, to pass through a curtain. There's a curtain of bright mind that's hanging between our mind, our thoughts, and the Spirit's absolute sight. In some of the Vedic literature, the Upanishadic literature, it's not referred to as a curtain, it's referred to as a lid, a golden lid. But anyway, there's some kind of a barrier between our mind and the higher mind that is able to know directly by absolute sight. And he's allowed to pass through that barrier. And there he finds the occult cave, the hidden cave, a secret place. And there's a door, a mystic door through which one can pass. And that door, he finds it near to the well of vision in the soul. A well is where we can get water from deep underground. So this is some special water which gives the power of vision, of absolute sight. That well of vision is found in the soul, in the innermost being. So he finds that mystic door, and he entered into a wonderful space, a silent space where all is forever known. There is all knowledge, eternally, infinitely. And in that space, Sri Aurobindo says, the wings of glory brood. He doesn't show us the bird, but there must be a bird who has these wings, wonderful, glorious wings. And the bird is brooding. So this is like a mother bird sitting on her eggs, keeping them warm, preparing them to be able to hatch. If somebody is brooding, we can say this about people. We can't get them to talk to us. They're deeply absorbed in themselves. But sooner or later, something is going to come out. If you brood, something will hatch, like the baby birds. So there's a place where the wings of glory brood, and there's that silent space where all is forever known, the past and present and future, it's all seen and known. You will read, please.
Indifferent to doubt and to belief, avid of the naked real's single shock, he shored the cord of mind that ties the earth tight, and casts away the yoke of matter's law.
So King 𝐒𝐴svapaṭi is not interested in, he is indifferent to doubt, he's indifferent to belief. What he wants is the absolute experience of what is real, the naked real, reality without any covering. That's what he wants to experience. And in order to do that, he cuts the cord that ties our earth heart. He casts away the yoke of matter's law. The yoke is that piece that we put on the bullock to make him pull the cart. We join the bullock to the cart with the yoke. So we human beings are somehow under this yoke that connects us, ties us, makes us subject to the law of matter. But he's able to remove that yoke. He's no longer subject to the law of matter. And his mind and heart are no longer tied by this rope. This is a Vedic image that we earth beings are tied like animals that are going to be sacrificed. And what is that rope? It's a rope which has 3 strands: the body, the life, and the mind. The mind and the life under the domination of matter. So this is one of the great yogic realizations, is to be able to cut that cord or to remove it. So he is able to do that. Alice.
Shraddhavan means the word avid.
So avid. It means to be eager, to very much want. If you're in the desert, you may be avid for a drop of water. Or if you're very hungry, you're avid for a good meal. But what he's avid for, what he's really eagerly craving, is this touch of what is real, to go beyond all illusion. Thank you, John. And this word shore, that's what you do with shears, with scissors. You cut something, or with a knife, you can do it. So he cuts that cord of mind. So what happens then? Alice.
The body's rules bound not the spirit's powers. When life had stopped its deeds, death broke not in. He dared to live when breath and thought were still.
Yes. So because he's cut the cord and thrown away, thrown off this yoke of the domination of matter, the rules of the body, the physical rules, are no longer binding on him, on the powers of his spirit. The spirit is free to go on living and experiencing, even though in the body, the life has stopped its beats, the heart has stopped beating, the breath has stopped moving in and out. He dared to live when breath and thought were still. So this is one of the great yogic realizations. Some yogis have even agreed to be tested by scientists in laboratories when they stop their heartbeats, stop their breathing, silence their mind, and they continue to live. They can come back and wake up the body and use it. It's not damaged at all. John.
Thus could he step into the magic place, which few can even glimpse with hurried glance, lifted for a moment from mind's labored verge, and the poverty nature's earthly side.
Yes. So some people can, a few people can glimpse that magic place. They can, a few can glimpse it, just with a hurried glance, if they lift up their concentration for a moment from all the usual things that mind is working hard at. And if they manage to detach themselves from our earthly sight, which is so poor and limited compared with the absolute sight of the spirit. So a few people do glimpse that place. They are aware of its existence. But he's able to actually step into it. He doesn't just see it for a moment. He can step into it and move around there. And now Sri Aurobindo will describe that place, that magic place, to us. Amrita.
All that the gods have learned is their self-known. There, in a hidden chamber, closed and mute, are kept the record graphs of the cosmic scribe, and then the tables of the secret law. There is the book of beings index page, the text and glossary of the Vedic truths. Are there the rhythms and interests of the stars, significant for the movements of our faith, the simple powers of number and of form, and the secret code of the history of the world, and nature's correspondence with the soul are written in the mystic heart of blood.
Yes. There in that magic place. There's a hidden chamber. It's closed. It doesn't tell us anything. But stored there are all the record graphs of the cosmic scribe. There's somebody or some consciousness is keeping a record of everything that has ever happened and will ever happen in the universe. And this is known to occultists and mystics. They speak of it as the Akashic record. In a subtle atmosphere, everything is remembered and recorded. So they are recorded in the form of graphs, diagrams. And there, the tables of the sacred law, the law that underlies this whole universe. It is somehow written down there. There is the Book of Beings index page. There's a book of existence. And on the index page, that's where we can find the contents of the book. All the topics and themes, they are there on the index page. The text and the glossary of the Vedic truth are there. There's the text of all the secrets that are recorded in the Vedas, the truth behind those mysterious texts. But there's not only the text, there's also the glossary. The glossary in any book which has a lot of foreign words or difficult words, at the end you'll find a kind of list where they're explained and their meanings are given. That's the glossary. So there's the text, and if we can't quite understand the text, we can look up in the glossary. All of that knowledge is stored there. And another kind of knowledge that is stored there is about the rhythms and meters of the stars, significant of the movements of our fate. Nowadays we tend to think that the science of astrology is pure superstition. And most of it is, of course, if we look up our stars in the newspaper and find out what are we to expect this week. No. But somewhere are recorded the real meanings, no, of these rhythms, these vibrations, these meters. Meter is so important in poetry, in mantra, in music. So he says that those rhythms and those meters of what is going on in the rest of the universe, it does have some significance for our fate, for what happens to us here on earth. When Aurobindo first came to Pondicherry in his early years, before the Arya started occupying so much of his attention, he started to write an article or a series of articles on astrology, but he never finished them. But they are there. You can have a look in his collected works if you're interested about that. Also is the knowledge about the symbol powers of number and of form. It may feel also like something like a superstition, numerology, no? But nevertheless, many people take guidance from numerology. The numbers, these numbers, each of the cardinal numbers seems to have a special significance and power, a symbol power. And similarly, some forms. The form of the star, either the six-pointed star, which is makes up Aurobindo symbol, or the five-pointed star, the square, the triangle, the circle. These are all forms which have significance. And some schools of occultism and mysticism, they make use of these symbol powers of form. So all that knowledge is stored there also, along with the secret code of the history of the world. The whole story is there, but it's in code. It's not easy. Not everybody can read it. And another very interesting kind of knowledge that is there is about nature's correspondence with the soul. When two people have a correspondence, usually it means that they're writing letters or messages backwards and forwards to each other. But we can take it more literally, that there's some kind of relationship between nature and the soul. So what the soul does affects nature, and what nature does affects the soul. And the whole knowledge about that connection, that relationship, is also stored there in that magic place. All these things are written there in the very heart of life.
the line 20, that even chamber is closed and mute.
Mute. Mute means you can't speak. Silent. So Sri Aurobindo often uses these words mute and dumb to express something that is mysterious. It doesn't tell us anything. It's silent. Yeah.
So this chamber is closed to mankind.
It's closed to everybody except those who have the special capacities to enter there. And there's not even a notice on the door to say what is inside. No? You just come to that door and you don't know what is behind the door, what is in that room. But 𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒐 is able to pass through that door, enter that secret chamber, which is just keeping all its secrets. It's not sharing them.
I have a question about line 25.
Yes.
It's about the rhythms and meters of the stars.
Yes.
It's about the relationship with the last canto. If I remember well, there was a sentence about you were talking about the line between the matter and the spirit.
Yes.
And there was,
yes.
I remember the human littleness in between
Yes.
that matter and spirit. Was another word for human, I think. It's important.
So you wanted to ask about the stars.
The stars, is it at the end, is it matter then?
The stars matter or not? No, we have to take the stars in a symbolic sense. Of course, in a physical sense, we know that all the tiny points of light we see as stars, actually they're blazing suns, and sometimes they are gigantic galaxies full of billions of suns. What they symbolize, have always symbolized to humanity, is lights of truth. They symbolize the many truths. They are suns, but they are distant from us. Perhaps we are, of course, closely connected with our own star, and that represents for us the whole divine knowledge and power and energy. But each of those stars, but first we only see them small and far away. But there's that line, you know, about hitching your wagon to a star. If you have a guiding star or a guardian star, maybe there's one of those lights that you feel a special relationship with, and that its light, although the source is so distant, has some special meaning or power for you. Yeah. So here when he says the stars, of course astrology deals mainly with the planets, no? But we see those also as stars, don't we? Now we know that they are planets, but for thousands of years human beings didn't know that they were planets, didn't know what a planet was. They thought about the fixed stars that don't change their relationships, and the mobile stars that move around. And they felt that those mobile stars must have a special significance for us here on Earth.
So it's best, I don't know if there's anything best, but it's best to understand as if they were symbols of the spirit, the stars.
Symbols of the truths and the powers of the spirit, yes. And if we would be really conscious, if our sight were not so limited, of course those planets and even the more distant stars and galaxies, they are exerting some influence physically on us. Yeah. And we don't see the significance of that. We nowadays, with our materialist education, we don't take it very seriously. But it might be much more significant than we think. And we have, or traditionally, certain powers have been assigned, especially to the planets. No? Venus as the star of love, and Mars as the star of war, and Mercury as the messenger of the gods, and so on like that. And the one that we really feel its influence is the moon, the one that's closest to us. And of course the sun, which is dominating all existence in this part of the universe, and the solar system, and even further beyond it. But if we're thinking in symbolic language, in symbolic images, then the stars are the many truths. Shall we go on a little further? Olesia?
In the glow of the spirit room of memories, could recover the luminous macular notes, floating with light that felt ambiguous growth, rescue the tremble and the saving flows of the dark agreement by which all is ruled, that rises from material nature's sleep to flow the everlasting in blue shapes.
It's just a few lines, but he tells us so much in these few lines. Well, maybe we can start with this dark agreement. There's a dark agreement that rules everything that emerges, that rises up out of the sleep of nature, up out of matter, to manifest in the world and give new possibilities, new shapes to clothe the everlasting. The eternal Lord puts on all these different shapes and forms. But when they emerge here in the material world, they are ruled by a dark agreement. And in that spirit's room of memories that 𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒐 has entered, there's a glow of light there. And by the glow of that light, 𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒐 is able to see, as if written down, that dark agreement. It's like a contract. And like legal contracts here in our world, it has a preamble. In a legal document, at the beginning, there'll be a preamble which defines the purpose of this document and the application, what this agreement is made for. And sometimes at the end, there's also a saving clause, a sentence or a paragraph which states where this agreement does not apply. So And then there's a preamble and there's a saving clause. And in this dark agreement, there's also lots of notes in the margin. These are luminous, they're full of light. The agreement itself is a dark agreement, but these marginal notes. And he, in the light of that spirit's room of memories, 𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒐 is able to read the agreement with all these extra bits that otherwise were not obvious. The preamble at the beginning, the saving clause, and all those marginal notes. So that's what comes in the next sentence, Joel.
You could reread now and interpret anew these strange single letters, scattered, abstruse signs, resolve its oracle and its paradox, its riddling phrases and its blindfold terms, the deep oxymoron of its truth replete, and recognize as a just necessity its hard conditions for the mighty work. Nature's impossible Herculean toil, only a warlock wisecraft could enforce. Its law of the opposition of the gods, its list of inseparable contraries.
Yes. So he's able to reread this dark agreement and reinterpret it, understand it in a new way. He can understand its strange writing. It's written in strange symbol letters. It's a crabbed, ambiguous scroll. This agreement is written on a scroll. Before we had books, things were written on long rolls of parchment and rolled up and unrolled. No? And crabbed, it means that because the stuff on which the scrolls were written was very, very costly and difficult to prepare, the scribes who wrote, they wrote in very, very small, close letters together. And it makes it difficult for us to read them. So this scroll, where the agreement is written, is ambiguous. Its meaning is not clear. But he is able to reread it and reinterpret it. He can read all those strange, simple lettered, and here and there these signs. What do they mean? Abstruse signs, they're obscure, their meaning is hidden. But he's able to resolve its oracle. An oracle is a divine message that comes to you in a way that's in a language and a form of expression that you're not sure what it means. The Tibetan government has an oracle, an official person who has to be consulted when there are big decisions to be made. And that person goes into a trance and gives the messages. But the ordinary people standing around, they can't understand it at all. There's somebody who's with him who knows how to interpret the message, and he will give the oracle. Well, there was a famous oracle in ancient Greece, the oracle at Delphi. There it was a priestess. She would go into trance, and her advice was considered to be very important. All the city-states of Greece, if they had to make important decisions, they would send delegates to Delphi, to the temple, with gifts There were treasure houses all around who collected the gifts that the cities had sent, and they would write down their questions. And she would go into a trance. She too would make movements and signs, and there'd be somebody who would interpret that and write it down. But there are many stories about how the people who received the oracle couldn't understand it and interpreted it in the wrong way, and so on. So an oracle, it's a very mysterious message. But he's able to resolve it, to understand that riddle, that mysterious message, and its paradox, the way it seems to be contradictory. No? It has riddling phrases you wonder, what on earth does it mean? No? And it's blindfold terms. Also in a legal document, there may sometimes be included blindfold terms, phrases or words that are not meant to be understood by everybody. Only if you have the clue or the key you will be able to understand. Blindfold, it's when you cover somebody's eyes. And the deep oxymoron of its truths repliques. An oxymoron is a phrase that has contradictory terms in it. Like we can say, hot ice, or happy tears even, perhaps we can have. Things like this which seem to be contradictory, an oxymoron. Sri Aurobindo uses several different oxymorons in the course of the poem, but I can't remember any of them just at the moment. Its truths repliques. It means the truths are expressed in the form of a kind of statement and a response. It's like two voices. One person says something like this, and a response comes. So if these seem to be contradictory, the statement and the response, this would give this oxymoron, these deep oxymoron of its truths repliques. But he's able, in the glow of the spirit's room of memories, to resolve and understand all this and interpret it. And so he recognizes that the way things are in the world is a just necessity. They have to be just like that. These are the hard conditions for the mighty toil, which is the mission, the meaning and purpose of this manifestation. This impossible toil, this labor that is going on in the unfolding of the world. He says it's nature's impossible Herculean toil, something that's Herculean. It is impossible, extremely difficult. Hercules was a Greek hero, and he had to do 12 impossible tasks. Only nature's warlock wisecraft could actually carry out that impossible Herculean labor. Warlock wisecraft. It means magic, enchantment. A warlock is a male enchanter, a male witch. Wisecraft is the knowledge that witches have. So this is a kind of occult, hidden, forbidden knowledge. No? Nature's knowledge knows the law of the opposition, the contradictions between the cosmic powers. It understands this list of inseparable contraries. Our whole world is ruled by inseparable contraries. Hot and cold, black and white, light and darkness, truth and falsehood. The list is endless, and they're all inseparable. They can't be separated. You can't have one without the other. That's the law of this world. And now 𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒐 has gained a much deeper understanding of all that.
Why is Aurobindo calling it a dark agreement?
Yes, because it sets such hard conditions. No, it is. It's not something easy, and it's dark in the sense of being very difficult to understand. It's maybe dark also in the sense of causing a lot of pain and suffering. And what 𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒐 does is he sees that even though it's so hard, the conditions for this work are so hard and the labor itself is so hard, this is the only way it can be done. This agreement as it stands, dark as it is a just necessity. He sees and recognizes that. And that will be elaborated on in what we read next week. We'll stop there for today. If anybody wants to read in the group, they can stay. Otherwise, those who need to leave can go.
This knowledge first he had of time-born men, admitted through a curtain of bright mind that hangs between our thoughts and absolute sight. He found the occult cave, the mystic door, near to the well of vision in the soul, and entered where the wings of glory brood, in the silent space, where all is forever known. Indifferent to doubt and to belief, avid of the naked real's single shock, he shore the cord of mind that ties the earth heart, and cast away the yoke of matter's law. The body's rules bound not the spirit's powers. When life had stopped its beats, death broke not in. He dared to live when breath and thought were still. Thus could he step into that magic place, which few can even glimpse with hurried glance, lifted for a moment from mind's laboured works and the poverty of nature's earthly sight. All that the gods have learned is there self-known. There, in a hidden chamber, closed and mute, are kept the record graphs of the cosmic scribe, and there the tables of the sacred law. There is the book of being's index page. The text and glossary of the Vedic truth are there. The rhythms and meters of the stars, significant of the movements of our fate. The symbol powers of number and of form, and the secret code of the history of the world and nature's correspondence with the soul are written in the mystic heart of life. In the glow of the Spirit's room of memories, he could recover the luminous marginal notes, dotting with light the crabbed ambiguous scroll. Rescue the preamble and the saving clause of the dark agreement by which all is ruled that rises from material nature's sleep to clothe the everlasting in new shapes. He could reread now and interpret new its strange symbol letters, scattered abstruse signs, resolve its oracle and its paradox, its riddling phrases and its blindfold terms, the deep oxymoron of its truth's repliques, and recognize as a just necessity its hard conditions for the mighty work, nature's impossible Herculean toil, only her warlock wise craft could enforce. Its law of the opposition of the gods, its list of inseparable contraries.